Hey, welcome to the Path Less Travel podcast. I'm your host, Craig Heatherly. Before we get into it, I want to tell you what we're doing here because this is a little different. I had an idea to do something outside of my normal podcast format. Instead of a one-on-one conversation, I wanted to bring multiple leaders into the same room and just let it happen. No script, no agenda, a roundtable. So that's what this is, the Leadership Roundtable series. 4 sessions, 12 leaders, and 4 topics that I think every leader is wrestling with right now. Today is session 1, the daily discipline of great leaders. Thank you to our sponsors, Chrome Group and Gibson, for making this happen. Going in, I didn't know exactly how it would land, and honestly, it was a lot better than I expected. One leader said, "I can't control everything anymore. I have to trust great people and let go." Another one talked about spending 95% of the time understanding the problem before touching a solution. And then one line that hasn't left me. When I'm not doing well outside of work, it shows up in my leadership. Different people, same idea. The best leaders aren't trying to do more. They're trying to be more intentional with what actually matters. I hope you get something from this one. Thanks for listening.
So let's jump on in. Let's do some brief intros, starting with Craig, please. Just share a little bit of you, your background, your company, and why you stuck up your hand to say yes to this.
Right. I'm Craig Brummell. I'm COO at ABRO Industries. I've been here since January 1st. As an organization, we are a distributor of home and automotive products in about 150 different countries around the world, based out of South Bend, family owned and run. My career has been this is my 3rd stint in a family owned and run business, which I love. They're great organizations to make an impact and work with brilliant entrepreneurs. I've been in various industry and consulting roles prior to that. I'm married to my favorite person, Marta Brummell. She's a life coach who has kind of influenced my own view of leadership. And I've got 4 kids, college age and older in this world, and they're awesome humans. Why I chose this, I have to admit, I was a little selfish, I think. And when Craig had raised the idea of daily, monthly practices is something that I'm trying to figure out still. I don't have the exact answers. I was actually hoping Steve and Dustin would have it all figured out so I could potentially learn from them. But this is an ongoing practice. And so how do we both individually and organizationally work at an execution level and a strategic level is a really important question for all of us. And so as one, I was open to exploring and having conversations and prompting me even to be a little more reflective on what I do that may be working and not working.
Steve?
Yeah, after college, I bounced around a little bit in the area and ended up doing some purchasing for a cargo trailer company in Bristol. And in 1999, I broke away and started ATC Trailers out of Napanee, all aluminum trailers. And I sort of bought a door business at the same time from an Amish guy down there. And grew those businesses really quickly. I ran the door business and someone else ran the trailer business. Grew really quickly and then lost Napanee Window in the downturn of 2008. That really changed my outlook on how to run a manufacturing company. It started reading about the Toyota production system, learned about lean manufacturing, and went back to my trailer company in 2009 and helped take that business through a transformation. Grew that business, left day-to-day operations in 2018. I needed a break, wanted to do some other things. So in 2020, started an aluminum extrusion company in Syracuse with a couple of friends of mine, and then helped start a boat seating company called Crew Seating up in Elkhart. We supply seating to mostly Bennington and Godfrey. And my wife and I recently started a cafe coffee shop in Goshen called Cortado. I have 3 kids, all out of college, all off the payroll. And my oldest son just started his own manufacturing company in Virginia where he lives. Wife, Victoria, of 30, 2 years, 33 to 32. And we go to a Mennonite church in Elkhart.
A true entrepreneur. Dustin, go ahead.
Hey, Craig, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Dustin Holland. I'm president and CEO of ABRO Books. This is my 22nd year at the company. I've pretty much been here from the ground floor up. For those of you not familiar with ABRO Books, we have grown to become one of the largest secondhand sellers of books around the world. We currently have facilities in the United States and the UK. We source books from 4 different countries, and then we ship them to over 200 countries around the world. We've got 400 associates that help make that happen day in and day out. And we're a mission-driven bookseller. So over time, we're nearing our 500 millionth book saved from landfills. We've sent back close to $40 million to libraries and literacy partners around the world. And we're here to make a difference. So for those of you that want to support the company and not Amazon, please buy your next books at betterworldbooks.com. And as to why I'm here today, I had a lot of fun with Craig a few weeks ago. We don't do a whole lot of interviews, or we don't do a whole lot of PR, mainly just because we're so busy and most of our focus is driving sales to our website. But I think it's awesome to have a venue and an opportunity to share the company's story, especially here in the South Bend, Michiana area. And Craig is a great podcast host, so that's why I'm here.
Thanks. Steve, I want to kick it over to you to start. We found daily disciplines. What matters most?
I am not, because I'm an entrepreneur and it's more my personality. I don't have a daily strict code to follow as far as my day. I think what matters to me, and people ask me all the time, how in the world do you manage all that? How do you get anything done? And, my response is, it's really simple. It's not necessarily easy for everyone to do it the way I've done it, but it's pretty simple. I just have 3 or 4 really good people running the companies that I helped start. And so I think it's important to not pack our days too full. And for me, that means I've got really good leaders, folks running the businesses that run it better than I did or would. And so in doing that, I try to really focus on only the things the business needs from me that I'm really, really good at. Now, not all businesses have the margins or the size to be able to do that. I realize early on in my career, I had to do it differently, but that's always what I strive to do, is to just have really good people. And then with process excellence, try your best to make it easy for them to thrive and do what they do best. And so the daily discipline of having to really create a strict daily path to follow is something I don't, at least where I'm at in my career right now, I don't have to be that way. I have some freedom and latitude. And so in between meetings, I try to give myself time to reset, rethink some things, a lot of time to process, think about strategy. So that's what has worked for me.
Yeah, and we'll get to, that idea of building in between meetings. I think that's important to think through and talk through. Craig, I know you're a little bit more structured on your end, as far as morning routine and just routines in general. What are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I kind of look at it in 2 buckets around the whole theme of alignment, which is, how do I make sure me personally as a human, I'm aligned, kind of mind, body, spirit, on, and what can I do on a daily basis to do that? And then I also think about organizationally, what is our organization at ABRO or wherever else I've been? What type of things do we need to do to make sure we're aligned to keep things moving? And that can be daily. So from a personal perspective, it's some simple things, but it's making time, getting good sleep, right? Trying to get 7-8 hours if I can. It's getting movement every morning, getting my coffee, and maybe some level of meditation or reflection or journal or breath work, something that just kind of anchors me for the day. So I try to infuse those in so that I'm a little more aligned to get the day going so I can show up as best as I can. And then at an organization level, I try to think about what are the things, the cadences, the engagement we want to do on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, lightweight, not too heavy, but ideally, I also want it aligned to like, what's our goals? What's our strategy? What's our values as an organization? And, on a day-to-day basis, that could be, like it could be a weekly check-in with our leadership team weekly. On a daily basis, I like to connect with our teams, how they're doing on a personal level. So it's not, it's not totally structured, but there are some things in organization I like to have to tell me, how are we doing? And that could be a daily, weekly, monthly, annual, quarterly basis to get a better sense.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Dustin. I mean, you are on a plane more than maybe everybody on this call combined. How do you build in disciplines into your day?
Well, that's a great question. And I'm a little jealous of Craig's answer. I wish I could do some breath work. But Craig, you're right. I am on a plane a lot. I think since I saw you for the podcast 2 weeks ago, I've been in the UK, North Carolina, Denver, off to Japan tomorrow. So it is a lot of travel, but we get it done. I actually relish travel because that's, in a lot of cases, that's when I'm most productive. It's funny, people like to book flights that, have Starlink. I would prefer not to have any internet on the plane, but that's just me. But on a day-to-day basis, the company is relatively structured, but I would say my schedule and calendar is not. It's a combination of late nights, early mornings. I think I shared with you last time that I'm making an effort to force myself to do more, to have more personal time, to do things like exercise. That definitely gives me a whole lot more energy, which is great for me. That my team members don't necessarily like it that much. But if you look at over the course of a month, that we try to eliminate meetings, and we encourage people, if you get invited to a meeting, but you don't need to be, you're not there to contribute, then feel free not to join. Traditionally, the company's had too many meetings, routine meetings. We like people to challenge meetings and spend more time getting things done in the traditional sense of an entrepreneur. I know that's probably Steve's preference, and that's pretty much how we still run the company.
You guys all three mentioned, I think you didn't use the words works for me, but you've identified the rhythms that work for you. Steve, I guess, take me through the journey of identifying what works best for you and your personality, your preference of what the workday looked like. And then I'll kick that over to everybody else as well.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like I'm not structured. I do have a structure that I follow. It's based on the GTD system, Getting Things Done, book by David Allen. That book has been so good for me because I am an entrepreneur and I am kind of all over the place sometimes, or I can be. And I've learned that I have to have a trusted system. That's what that book's all about. I've got to have a trusted system so I can think and I don't have to remember everything. And I don't, our brains are not computers. And so the book is really about how do we keep our commitments? We keep our commitments through a trusted system. So I use the GTD system. I have a weekly review that I do where I review my horizons of focus, 50,000 foot view, 20,000, 10,000, 5,000 and ground level. So I do have a system like that, but I don't use it to the level that a friend of mine does. He works for Steelcase up in Grand Rapids. He's a GTD black belt. He does consulting. And I mean, the guy is just on another level. And I've tried to achieve some of what he's done and I just can't do it. So for instance, one thing he showed me, we were together a couple of weeks ago. This is just a hack that I thought was really cool. Some of you may get something from this, but every morning, and his day is extremely scheduled, but every morning he pulls up his iPhone, he gets on the alarm program and he labels every meeting that he has when he has to leave to be on time. And he showed me a lineup of like 15 different alarms that would go off during the day. When he pulls his phone up, it shows him his next meeting and where it's at. So, that's amazing. And I tried it for a couple of days and it worked. I don't have enough meetings to probably make that useful, but that was really cool. And then on the other end, it's just like, well, I'm going to do whatever I want. And, hey, everyone around me, you have to manage me. That's the other end of the spectrum. And I think I'm somewhere in between because I do recognize that I do have to keep my commitments to the folks that depend on me. So I have had to become systematic, but I took a structured system and use the principles of it to work for me and my work.
Yeah, Craig and Dustin, I guess when you guys hear that, I mean, what have you created a structure or adopted a structure and somewhat morphed it into some level of a hybrid for you? And where did that originate from?
Yeah, I would say there's a few approaches that I've used. One is related to the getting things done. Patrick Lencioni in The Advantage talks about structures and setting some cadences up. And part of it is when you're focused or if you bring your key teams together, looking at the tactical things, but also making sure you've got, key strategies that you're checking monthly and then on a quarterly basis, coming back together and syncing up. Do you need to change your strategy? So that notion I try to do, but I would say when I look at for the day and the week, like when I come in the mornings, I try to, what's the big, most important thing for the day? And hopefully it's aligning to one of our key strategies. And I'd like to spend, the first couple hours in the morning on those things. I know I will have some meetings throughout the day. Those are often more tactical things or items where my input's needed, or we have to solve a problem, or someone needs help. And so those can be structured based on what needed. And then I like to insert in there just time to walk around and connect with our people. And it could be just talking about the day, or it could be knowing someone's struggling with something, or it could be on a project or something I want to understand where they are, where things stand. So ideally, major focus, some key meetings that are executing on what needs to be done, and then touches with our team members are how I try to infuse throughout my day.
And I would say I'm a combination or a hybrid of Steve and Craig. And a lot of my schedule is kind of governed by the time zones in which we operate. So we operate across, I would say 12 time zones. So, work has to be prioritized based on who's available at the given moment, or what's transpired in the middle of the night or early morning in a different time zone. But we fully embrace the getting things done mentality. We operate in the e-commerce world is it keeps you on your toes, especially when you're shipping 20 to 30,000 orders a day and processing 500,000 books a week. There's a lot that can go wrong with that. So you never know what's going to pop up. But when things are running smoothly, we have regular leadership team meetings. We spend a lot of time prioritizing the e-commerce work. And unfortunately, we prefer to spend most of our time dedicated to betterworldbooks.com and then the fulfillment operation. But there are times where we get dragged into fires that are caused by marketplaces like Amazon or other websites. So sometimes that'll take time. All of us have a team that we have to manage with a workforce of 400 people. All kinds of things happen. And we've got an amazing HR and legal team that deals with a lot of the issues that crop up. So usually I'm only dragged into the things that they need me for. But every day is different. It's exciting work. I probably wish I was more structured, and maybe I'm more structured than I think. But what the calendar tells me to do is usually what I'm going to do. But like Craig, I like to make sure I spend time when I'm here in Mishawaka with this is our biggest facility. It's 330,000 square feet. Definitely like to spend time out on the floor, and that's where I'm happiest. I'm not really happy behind a desk.
Well, how do you guys, when you think through managing all the different things that are coming your way there, Dustin, to your point, how do you focus your energy on the things that matter most when the bullets are flying at you and we're in the action and there's leaders that have been elevated to another position. There are leaders that have been put into a bigger leadership role. How do you help them? How would you help them identify like what matters most when everything feels important?
That's an awesome question. So usually when the bullets are flying, there's a lot of bullets flying, and you truly just usually we'll prioritize a problem based on the size of the revenue implication. So the bigger the revenue implication, the higher the priority level, and the more, we essentially have to triage issues. So our leaders they become experts at that. And, a lot of the issues that we deal with are related to data or data integrations, or a marketplace does an upgrade and they fail to tell their partners with enough time what's changed. So you gotta just adapt on the fly and plug holes to the best of your ability. I mean, the worst thing that you could do is, ship a lot of books to the wrong customer, or ship a lot of books at the wrong prices to the wrong customer. So we do our best to get books shipped out in a timely manner to customers at fair prices. But our team has gotten very adept at handling issues and prioritizing them, almost to the point where they, things run smoothly and they're not having to reach out as much. I've been in this role almost 7 years, and my goal is every day is everything we do is to put the company on autopilot to the best of our ability.
Steve, what are your thoughts on that? Oh, going crazy.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. One of the things that's interesting in this question for me is about 15 years ago or so, I was in a role where I was taking on just a massive project, happening a massive technology project. And I came to a realization that like, I couldn't do everything. Like, as much as I wanted to have my hands on everything, there came to be a point of like, as a leader, I have to let go of certain things. And so some of this is deciding what can you let go of and know it's going to be okay. And often my mindset is I'm good with, and I like Steve's point of having good, smart people. At ABRO, we've got 6 different, geographical divisions with great leaders and great teams. And so for me, I can allow and let them do their thing and only focus on the biggest trouble areas or the most strategic thing or strategies I may want to drive, and really allow them to work the way they need to until if something happens that's significant, then that may be where I have to dive into. So it was one of these things that maybe it seems simple and obvious, but I just came to a point of like, I can't control everything. I can't have, my hands in on everything. I really need to trust and step back and let go of things and allow those people that hopefully are capable and you trust in them to do their work. And if they're not, sometimes you need to have some measurement systems or indicators to say, where's their, flashing lights, where there's some issues to say, okay, now maybe I need to focus my attention on. And that's where regular touch bases or a review cadence can help identify where there might be, a redirect of my time and energy.
Yeah, just adding on to that, you talked about bullets flying, that would be a battle analogy. And I think the military is the kind of the way I've heard that they train is to embed principles and embed strategy in the frontline folks, because sometimes communications get cut off. Sometimes the enemy doesn't do what you expected them to. Okay. You can't necessarily, as a general, you can't necessarily run up to the front line of the battle and make changes. So you have to trust that you have embedded those things into those frontline folks. And the front line is where the action happens. That's where the customers hang out. And that is 90% of the importance in any business, is where the customers hang out. I think sometimes as leaders, we lose sight of that. We sort of insulate ourselves. That's a whole nother topic. But one of the things that I've seen, one of the great ways that I've seen to embed those things is Jeff Miller, my partner here at Aluminum Insights, who runs the business as CEO. He brought with him from his previous role a system called performance agreement. And every month, each of us sit down with our direct reports and we go through the previous month. We have a list of their duties. Maybe it's adapted from their job description. And it's really a time to review, here's what you were tasked with. These are the things that you're responsible for. Do those make sense? Yes, no, where are there questions? And then here is an area you need to improve on, or here's an area that you need to focus on because of this change or that change or whatever. And then a time for feedback for your leadership. Am I leading you properly? Are you, how are we culturally? Things like that. But the discipline of doing that monthly with every single person helps to embed that. And you sort of keep a running Word document with highlighting in yellow the things that need focus or need improvement. And if you do that monthly, to me, that's the best way to embed the right things. When the bullets are flying, those things are already known.
And Steve, to take that a step further, over the past few years, we've been able to take all of our KPIs and they're pretty much, we can monitor everything now. So everything is pretty much real time, and we're probably measuring several hundred different KPIs. And now we're in a position where we have alerts in place pretty much on everything. So if one part of the business breaks, the right leader at the company will know immediately. We can take action much faster than we used to be able to do.
What I like about that is it's, it's lightweight, right? As small businesses, entrepreneurs, right? You don't want something that's real heavy and onerous. If you can set a time to connect, or like I've had, every Friday, certain set of metrics that come out that tell us how we doing. We on track or not? We winning? We losing? Are we close to our customers or not? How are our employees doing? Weekly or monthly, but doing it in a way that's either automated. And I think with AI coming, that's going to present a whole new set of opportunities, for us, but also doesn't require a heavy lift on us or employees, but still ensures the conversation's happening or that, you're seeing status of what needs to be done. So I like on both of what you guys said. I like those points.
One thing, and we think about adjustments in our life, adjustments on this, some technology adjustments with, Steve and Dustin not being necessarily on screen, and we'll work those out for the next one. But I think when we think about leaders, like we show up holistically, like it's just not physically, it's just not spiritually, it's just not emotional. We show up multi-dimensionally. And one thing I don't want to lose sight of is the stuff outside of the work, the rhythms, the structure, the disciplines outside of the work that allow you guys to be your most effective. So when you guys think about just rhythms and structures and disciplines you've built into your life to be able to show up your best 8 to 5 or whatever you work, yeah, what comes to mind there that you'd be willing to share?
I can start off on this one. I played basketball in college and sort of was always athletic in high school. And by the time I turned 30, I started noticing, because I hadn't kept up exercise, and I was just like, I think it makes sense for me to stay at this. And so I started in my early 30s, a routine, and I've never let off physical exercise. I run, I lift, I still play a lot of basketball. That's really helped me because it's easier during that time of life to develop those habits. And now it's sort of a part of me. And I actually enjoy it that time each day, 4 to 5 times a week. I look forward to it, and developing those habits really help me. But also, again, back to giving yourself time to think. And I really don't spend time on social media. I'm not distracted with my phone all the time. I try really hard to be disciplined with that and just be like, if I'm sitting at a restaurant or a coffee shop, I'm looking around, I'm noticing things, I'm noticing people, I'm learning from others and how they interact with each other and things like that. I've just really worked hard to not get caught up in some of the anxiety and stresses that come along with that kind of thing.
I think part of this reference or this question is an important one, Craig, because I find when I'm not doing well outside of work, it ends up showing up in work. And so it's like, how am I taking care of myself? Like Steve, through exercise and other things. I think, there's been times in my career where I'm traveling all the time. And I remember I'd come home and it was almost like getting reacquainted with my wife and the kids. It's like reentry, what's going on and how do I be present? And I think there's a couple of things that I've learned and tried to do outside of work. One is just making time. Like even with my wife, we love our, Saturday morning, Sunday morning coffees, right? And that's set time where we're together and where we can, if we can do dinner, during the weeknights, those are times to connect for the two of us. When we're solid, we're good. The rest of the family is good. And I think that spills over into family time. So making that time has been really important. And then I think the other piece that I shared with you before is just having, I've got a coach that helps me, that I talk to, a couple times a month to help provide perspective, to give me a sense. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's work, sometimes it's integrating the two, but helping me navigate things, process things, maybe reset how I am approaching or thinking about something. And I think those things are important to help ensure we're good, to make sure I'm good so that, the next work day I can show up in a productive way, but also make sure that, personal life and family life is good and solid and not showing up negatively at work.
And for me, I think we all share and strive for the same things. I know we just took our senior team to our annual offsite strategy planning session. We've got a property down in the North Carolina mountains. So we spent a week there, but that's one of the things I look forward to most is just spending outdoor time with the family. When we're in the area, our schedules, we're at the point of our lives where most of it's dictated by our kids' sports schedule. So we're bouncing between hockey or cross country or track meets, football. I mean, my kids, I've got a 9th grader and a 6th grader, and they pretty much play every sport you can imagine. So that's where weekends and late nights are devoted to when I'm not here in the office.
Yeah. And I've structured this where, we'll have some Q&A on the back end due to the later start. We're going to keep just plowing ahead with the content. This was I had everybody submit a leadership question, something they're curious about when they registered. And then I ranked those. And, this topic is number 2. What daily, weekly habits or routines make you an effective leader? So people are craving for this. I want to continue to zoom out and think through maybe some of the quarterly, monthly, annual rhythms, structures that you guys have maybe built into your life to show up your best in the moment. I think that's really it's hard to do, to show up in the moment and be present. So when you guys hear that question, who's got something, who wants to tackle it?
My vote is Craig.
Oh, thanks for the vote of confidence. I would, as I'm thinking of this, and if my, wife were here, we ideally would say, hey, we're going to take a vacation, something for a week or longer. But I have to admit, we haven't been as good at that. I think that's aspirational more. We try to get, the weekends, the longer weekends, and trying to get into, more regular cadence for vacations that gives a reset. I love Steve's comment about just not being on social media. I don't do much. I mean, it's a joke of my family. I'll check in on Instagram once every, 3 or 4 weeks. And my kids are like, yeah, Dad, I sent you that a long time ago. But I think the notion of off the grid, going somewhere, taking that time, I think from a reset is really, really important. And I love, Dustin, the annual retreat to get away. I've done that in past roles to get away, to reset. I remember when I was working in Notre Dame at one point. We had a really major project there. And once every quarter or so, my team, a subset of the team, would create a half-day offsite. And it was an update on this 3-year program we were running. And it had a lot of fun infused in it. So we did a David Letterman show. We would interview coaches. We would do, there's usually an inspiring speaker. And so even from a work perspective, we did something that was work related, but also baked in fun. And I think even this annual, how do you do annual planning while it's also renewing outdoors, not all work jammed in during that time. I think those types of things are taking time to think, as Steve was talking about, and get offline, off the grid. It's just hugely important.
Yeah, we've found that probably our most successful brainstorm sessions happen when we can extract ourselves from our everyday operating environment. So we've got customers around the US, and there's some big meetings that we go to throughout the year. So we'll bring the whole executive team to those meetings, have the meetings with our partners, and then we continue strategizing and brainstorming as an exec team. And that's been extremely fruitful, and everybody loves it. I mean, it's a chance to get out of the office and do some team building in different cities. And that's been very rewarding. And we're going to keep doing that.
Yeah, I think most of my structure around this, I know you said longer term, but for me, I leave enough time, and where I'm at in my career with the leaders around me, I have enough time to think a lot about longer term. So that isn't a deficit that I struggle with. For me, as long as I keep up with my weekly reviews, and it tends to be more monthly reviews, but just really simply what that is, I start with reviewing my horizons of focus to bring alignment. And then I review my calendar 1 week backward and then 2 weeks forward. Then I get all my inboxes to zero. And then I review my projects and task lists. Just doing that feels like it's so foundational and sort of resets and says, okay, yes, I'm doing the right things. I'm keeping my commitments. That tends to allow me to actually think. And so if I'm on a walk, sometimes I don't even have a podcast going or music going. And if I can be out on a walk for 45 minutes with nothing in my ears, like it's amazing what comes to mind. So that's another thing that I try to do, although it seems like a lot of times I have an audiobook going or a podcast or music.
Steve, it sounds like we all need to come visit the coffee shop in Goshen.
Absolutely. Come on over. I start most mornings there and love to see everybody there. Yeah.
Well, I want to give you guys one final question to discuss before we close this thing out. And, based on some of these conversations I've had with folks through the podcast, I now build in a quarterly retreat for myself. And a lot of it is just taking time to just think and just be present. And that is hard to do for somebody that needs to achieve and knock things off a to-do list. So I love that you guys just mentioned the importance of getting off the grid and thinking, spending time in your own thoughts versus others' thoughts. Last question here. Let's see where I want to go with this one. One discipline that's made the most meaningful difference in your leadership, what would it be?
Craig, I'll take that one first. I think for me, it's the ability to adapt. So we started as a very small entity, small startup 22 plus years ago. A lot of different cycles, both up and down. We've had good times, and we've definitely endured some very challenging times throughout those 2+ decades. But we have a lot of legacy employees here. We have more than 75 people that have been here for more than 10 years. And they're still here because not only because of the mission, but because they've all demonstrated the ability to adapt over the years, because there's been a tremendous amount of change. We've had different ownership structures, different leaders throughout those 20+ years. So I said, you got to be able to adapt. And we're going through a phase right now where it's extremely important as we educate our team about the power of AI. I know that topic hasn't come up yet, but that is something that we're spending the majority of our time on right now, is how do we use AI to continue to build and take the company further. And I would encourage everybody that's listening to make sure you're doing that with your teams, so you literally don't get left behind.
For me, I think, one of the things is spending time with our teams. And one of the things I've done I'm doing right now, I just almost finished it up. I have my last person, interestingly, today, is I've sat with each individual on our team for about 30, 45 minutes just to talk. And these are everyone across the organization. And it's really no agenda other than, tell me about yourself. How did you come to ABRO? Where were you before? And inevitably it leads into family and life. And so out of these conversations, I learn a tremendous amount about the individual, their story. It allows me to create connection and relationship. And then I always learn about things around how we can make ABRO even better. And so I think that listening, the idea of making time to listen and engage and connect with our team members is so important. We all are spending so much time in the execution and problem solving role that we don't just take time to ask questions and listen. And that's something that I'm seeing right now. I come away from these conversations and I'll tell my wife, I'm like, this was amazing. You can't believe this conversation, where this person came from. And it's really a beautiful and helpful experience for me.
I think I would have to say mine is problem solving, learning how to really understand problems. That came from my learning about the Toyota production system. Toyota spends 95% of their time on understanding the problem and then 5% on the solution. And that takes discipline. And for me as an entrepreneur, tearing off in all kinds of directions, I had to really learn to slow down, make sure we really understood the problem deeply. And there was a lot of lean tools that helped with that. But I think learning to say, okay, let's state the problem so that we all are in agreement before we start to move on from that in as few words as possible. So that's really helped.
All right. Leave listeners with great sources, people, books, podcasts, maybe your top ones that have taken this idea of becoming more disciplined as a leader, or just your favorite. What would you guys suggest?
I'll take that one. 3 books for me that I just tell everyone about is Getting Things Done by David Allen, The Toyota Way by Jeffrey Liker, and then 7 Habits. Those 3 books, I mean, it should be read yearly by all of us.
And Steve, it looks like we carry all 3 of those.
Exactly. You know where to buy them. Perfect.
Steve, you mentioned those 2 years ago. So
No.
those are the test of time. Thanks for sharing. Dustin, Craig, what do you guys got?
I'll go and let the book guy bring us home with this one.
I might disappoint you.
No, I have no doubt you will do just right. I mentioned one of them. I think Patrick Lencioni's book, The Advantage, is a good one just to help understand and some structures around strategy, around meeting cadences and teams. I think that's been interesting and it's light enough to where it gives you some things that you can try to apply to your organization. I still love Good to Great as a book, and the notion of just the right people on the bus and flywheel and some of the things within there, I think are really helpful and classic. And then I'm going to throw out 2 more. One is I like Simon Sinek's Starting with Why. I remember interviewing for a job a while back, and they asked me to do a presentation, and one of them was, what's my why? And when I was done with that, he's like, why that why? And so I'm like, okay. And I just said, because there's nothing like this is at my core, right? This is who I am. And so that book was helpful in thinking through that. And then the last one is one I read recently. It's not a business book at all, but it's called Theo of Golden. And it's just about this man who makes a huge impact on a small community, doing things the right way and in a meaningful and in a giving way and getting to know people. And it was a great read, and my whole family's starting to read it. And so I'll throw that in as a non-business read.
Well, it's great being on a panel with so many book lovers, but surprisingly, I don't have a specific book to recommend. Craig knows it's kind of hard when you've got 10 or so million books in your warehouses, what to actually recommend. But right now, I would recommend that people listen to a tech podcast like the All In podcast, or really take any of the large AI entities and follow what their leadership is saying. They give a lot of helpful nuggets that are very helpful to running your business. A lot of them will provide insight on what's coming. Some of them will try to scare you on what's coming, but there's things that we can't even fathom right now that are coming down the track. And, the more you can do to get prepared, the better, because it's truly fascinating what's going on in the world right now. And there's a lot of very, very cost-effective tools that you can utilize to run your business and do more, and ultimately, have a step up on your competition.
Well, I want to close this thing out. And thank you three for participating and just sharing your thoughts. I think the thing that most listeners will take away from this is it's different for everybody. You've got your own style, right? Things that work for you that may not work for the next person, or may not work for you in this next phase of leadership. And you've got to continue to adjust and adopt and subscribe to different ways of thinking. So I want to thank you guys for participating. To all the participants, apologies on the video. Dustin and Steve were on our pre-call. They were live and they look great. You guys look great today. Craig, you look good. You look good too.
I even got a haircut, Craig.
Well, thank you all for attending. If you haven't registered for next week, another great lineup. So thank you guys for joining. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And that's it for session 1 of the Leadership Roundtable series. Thank you for listening. I hope you found value in this conversation. And do me a favor, hit that like, subscribe button, and follow this podcast. Have a great day.